welcome to episode 2 of Brilliant People Doing Brilliant Things. And today I have Sage Gordon Davis, and they are a brilliant person, and they are doing brilliant things. They have written 2 books of poetry, which I felt very touched by. It was very well done, sweet, in a lot of ways, touching, rips your heart out. I recommend buying both, but hopefully you will after this interview.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hello. Thank you. Hey, thanks so much for coming.
This is my first ever author interview, so I'm really thrilled to be here.
That's super exciting. Oh my goodness. I feel like, thank you. I feel very honored.
No, I felt very honored being invited, so thank you very much.
Hooray! Oh, that's exciting. I really did. Anyways, so for the Silk Flower Goodbye, who are you writing to or for? And who do you hope to touch with these poems? And you can answer for both of them too.
Perfect. Thank you. So Silk Flower Goodbye was really a project that I didn't actually intend to publish. I was doing it kind of as a therapy thing. So for people who don't know, Silk Flower Goodbye is a book of poems on loss and life and love as well, but primarily dealing with grief. Between 2015 and 2018, I lost 4 very important people in my life.
Wow.
3 of them within a space of about 6 weeks. And I just felt I needed to do something. I needed to be proactive with the grief that I was feeling, because I felt stuck. So I started writing, and I combined it with, I think it was Camp NaNoWriMo, July 2019.
Okay.
And I said, well, I'm going to write 100 poems during the month. And between Camp Nano and just needing to get through my emotions, just to kind of figure myself out.
To put it out on paper to see it. Because otherwise
Exactly.
It just rattles in your head. It does this bouncy thing, and you're like, this has to go somewhere.
100%. And my mom always used to say, if it doesn't pay rent, it's got to get out.
I love that. See, this is my point. You are very wise.
Thank you. Of course, she was generally talking about gas and not about thoughts, but
but it's way more
I think it works.
applicable.
I think it works in both contexts. And I had all of this stuff happening in my head, and it was getting to the point where I couldn't function anymore because I was just in this total echo chamber. So Silk Flower Goodbye, I wrote for myself. And when I was done, I thought, you know what? There are other people who are going through what I'm going through. There are a limited number of constants in life, and one of them is death. Everybody has lost someone. So I thought, I'll polish them up. I sent the work that I'd done off to a beta reader and to my critique partner, who later became my editor. And they came back with some very minor changes. And I thought, well, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to. So I designed a cover, and I spent, because at the time I was still working a full-time day job outside of the home. I spent about 2.5 hours every night for 2 weeks, formatting the book, typesetting it, making sure that everything was as it should be. And then I pressed submit, and I published it, and in the hopes that people who were struggling, like I was struggling, would find some grain of comfort and truth in it. So that was a really long-winded answer for a very simple question, but
it was, I don't know, I felt it worked, and the poems have a lot to them, and they were a lot about grief, and I loved it. And thank you for sharing your soul with us. That was
well, yes.
So I don't know if you want to like bounce to your new book of poems and then give me the answer for who you were writing those for and who you were hoping to touch for with those poems.
Sure. So The Heart Whispers was a bit of a rushed project.
Interesting.
After I published the Silkflower Goodbyes, I thought, well, it would be nice if in about a year I published another one. And I put that in the back of my mind, and then I got on with other work. I should mention that Silkflower Goodbye came out in ebook in October of 2019. I set the international paperback free in December of 2019, but the local paperback I did not get to hold in my hands until March of this year.
Oh my goodness. It's a long time.
I have a whole video recorded, I just haven't edited it yet, on the process of self-publishing in print in South Africa, and the reason why it was such a long gap between international and local. And of course, I then had my book launch party in March, and immediately the world shut down.
Oh, geez.
So
right.
I shelved everything that I was working on and put it all out of my mind. And then in August of this year, when I started finding a kind of equilibrium again, I mentioned to one of my friends, who is also a writer and an editor and a fantastic, wise person, that I was thinking it was probably time to start a second volume. And he said, well, why don't you do a book of love poems? And I thought, well, I don't know that I have that much to say about love. And I procrastinated on it because that's what I do. And had some very deep conversations with some friends of mine. And I realized the idea that we have of love is so warped by media, by the idea of grandiose gestures, and if it's not fire and flame, it's not love. And I realized,
Definitely.
but the love that I feel for my brother and my sister, that's still love. The love that I feel for my best friend is still love. I don't have children, but if I did, the love that I felt for them would also be love. So the dedication in The Heart Whispers actually says Eros is not the only love. And that's what I realized after those conversations, is that I do have something to say about love. Because romantic love and sexual love isn't all that there is.
Definitely.
And I think that we, as a society, need to normalize the expression of love in a non-romantic setting.
I 100% agree on that one.
So that's really what I was trying to achieve with The Heart Whispers, is to show the different facets of love. That it isn't all Romeo and Juliet, which, by the way, is not a love story, it's a tragedy. But
Right.
I feel like many of the stories that are held up as great love stories are actually tragedies. The Great Gatsby, for example, which everyone, or not everyone, but which is often touted as this romantic
Seriously?
ideal.
They're all
And I'm
vapid.
going,
Every last one of those
it's
people.
exactly, it's horrendous. It's all surface. This man ruins his life and the lives of all his friends because of the idea of a woman.
Right.
It's anyway, that is a whole other story.
We could have a whole cast about that.
Absolutely. So, did I answer the question? I can't remember.
I think you did. Well, who you were writing it to and for, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
so I think you definitely covered that. And I had a question about that, which is the poems seem to be written sometimes for past lovers, current lovers, children, a child, or a dear friend. Is this accurate? And I think you've answered that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Was there one type of one person in particular you were writing a bulk of them to, or did it change with the wind or the weather?
There were, I want to say that there were sort of representative people in each category, if I can put it that way.
Sure.
So a lot of them were written specifically with my husband in mind. A lot of them were written with my friend and podcast co-host RP Winters in mind. My best friend, in fact, both of my best friends, my niece even. So there are definitely representative people who I had in mind when I was writing the various types, but I wouldn't say that any one person was the muse for the bulk of them.
Cool. I was curious about that because you could kind of see tone changes, and I'm like,
And yes, you were right. There are definitely past relationships as well that have their threads in there. There is something when I sent the manuscript for The Heart Whispers to my critique partner and editor, she came back on a few of them and said, "This one is really bitter." And I said to her, "Yes, it's meant to be. Because love isn't all sweet all the time."
I liked that actually. It's like,
So, yes, anyway.
No, it's lovely. Who do you hope finds or reads Heart Whispers?
I don't know that I have an ideal reader for The Heart Whispers. I think I would like it to be this is now totally out there, but I would like it to be part of the syllabus for high school English.
That'd be a good.
Because I feel like I don't know how many people have the same experience as I do, but for half of my high school career, I was at an all-girls school.
Mm-hmm.
And the few examples of love and love poems that we had were what we were discussing earlier, very melodramatic, actually tragic, and then things like Shakespeare's sonnets,
Right.
which are great, but they're not relatable.
I feel
They're
like,
kind of unreal.
yeah, they're like huge air balloons, I feel, of romantic
Absolutely.
gestures like a Cyrano de Bergerac, and nobody does that anymore.
Yeah. So I would like young people to read The Heart Whispers and feel that love is more than what you're shown in Hallmark movies and in the classic literature that is so often tragic.
Yeah, I like that. Hi, Jenny. Good morning.
Oh,
She popped in the comments. Okay. What was the most interesting thing you discovered while writing The Heart Whispers? But I have an idea what this answer is.
I mean, it's honestly it's the same thing that I've been saying, that love is more
Yeah.
than candlelit dinners and walks on the beach and um, surprise presents and all of that. It's cups of tea in bed when one of you is not feeling terribly well and you just want to be in each other's space. That's love. And even arguing, and I'm saying this with the caveat that I mean arguing, not fighting. But
There's always
arguments,
negotiation to be had if you're having real communication.
exactly. Arguments, I think, are a valid part of love.
For sure.
That if you are two separate people, you are not going to agree on everything.
I don't agree on things with myself.
Half the time, I don't either. Um, so I think that acknowledgement that love isn't all sweetness and light is something that really struck home for me while I was working on The Heart Whispers.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. All right. Would you be willing to possibly read one of your poems for us?
Absolutely. I
Oh, that's
have one
amazing.
all ready to go.
It's awesome. Oh, I love poems. I love being like.
Let me just up the zoom on this so I can actually see it. So this is The Magic of You. I believe in the magic of you, the way the world crinkles at the edges like fire in your eyes when you smile. I believe in the magic of you, the glitter that dances like rain and moonlight when you laugh. I believe in the magic of you, the way you speak things into existence like lightning on the ocean when you talk. I believe in it, the magic of you.
I love that poem. That's beautiful. Those are one of the poems I thought you might be writing to a best friend who doesn't always love themselves.
That is absolutely the motivation behind that one.
And I love that you put it out there. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, there is magic in me. Right. I don't have to, like, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
There are at least 4 more poems in the book that are written to that same person, all with the same theme. And some of them, that one was coming from a place of genuine, heartfelt kind. I mean, they're all genuine and heartfelt, but of kindness and wanting to show you the best in yourself. One or two of them were actually me getting to the end of my rope and going, I want to shake you so badly. I am so sick of you not believing in yourself when literally everyone else in the world can see how great you are.
Right.
So they're there are tone changes throughout the book, because sometimes I just really wanted to shake the person that I was writing to. And that's very difficult in the current situation because my arms are not that long.
Hopefully the virtual one. How did they receive? When did they read it? How did they receive it?
They have not read it yet that I know of.
Gotcha.
They have been having a rough time, especially these last couple of months since the book came out. So I have not pushed it on them.
Fair.
But I am hoping that in the near future, they will be well enough that I can get a copy to them and they will be able to read it.
I hope so too. It's hard to be in those dark places where you really don't like yourself.
It really is.
One of my yoga friends, she seems like a person who loves herself really well. And I'm like, so does it get easier? Like, and she's like, no, it's a fight every day. I'm like, oh, I'm doing it right then. She's like, yep.
That is one of the things, going back to Silkflower Goodbye, is when I was writing it, dealing with all of the emotions that I was dealing with, I realized it doesn't get easier, but you get better at dealing with it.
Yeah.
And so when my mom passed away, my best friend, who had lost her mom to the same illness several years earlier, came to the funeral. Well, she couldn't be at the funeral because she had a work commitment, but she came to the reception isn't the right word, but the wake.
Wait, is that the one? The wake is before.
The wake is before.
So what is the after? A funeral,
I don't know.
Lunch with potato salad? I don't
know. Basically, she came to that and she pulled me aside after I'd had a whole day of dealing with other people.
Yeah.
And that was very difficult for me because I am possibly the most introverted person I know. And she pulled me aside and she said, I want to warn you that it is not the birthdays and the anniversaries and the Christmases that are going to get you. They will be difficult, but you can see them coming, so you can prepare yourself. It's the random Tuesday afternoons. And that's something that I've never forgotten. And there is actually a poem in Silkflower Goodbye called Tuesday that looks at that, the concept of it's not the big things that do it. I remember vividly about 3 months after my mom passed away, I started a new job. And I still think that job was my mom. I still think she got me that job. Because I had been unemployed for 18 months. I had applied for absolutely everything. Never gotten so much as a phone call, thank you for submitting. Nothing. And about a week after we got back from my mom's memorial service, we had to have two services for her because of the family being split on different sides of the country and not being able to travel. About a week after we got back from the second memorial service, I got a phone call from this company that I had applied to months before. And they said, the position that you applied for is no longer available, but we are creating a new position and we would like to consider you for it.
That's exciting.
So I went in there in a total frenzy. When I walked in, I looked an absolute state. I was absolutely everything that they tell you not to do in an interview. That was me, because I was so deep in my feels that I was not functional, and they still gave me the job.
Wow.
So I am convinced that that was my mom.
She put angel wings over their eyes or something.
I think she must have. And about 2 months after I started there, I was working on a spreadsheet, and I don't remember what the trigger was, but I just started absolutely bawling. The tears were streaming down my face, to the point that my desk mate actually came and put her arms around me and said, I think we need to go and have a smoke. And we went out, and she comforted me through it, and she said, what has upset you so much? And I said to her, I don't know. I just really miss my mom.
Yeah.
And there was nothing that had set it off, at least nothing that I can remember. There was nothing wrong. I was having arguably the best day of my life. I had everything that I needed, but I didn't have my mom.
Well, I guess that's why it came up. I feel like grief just sort of comes at you, like not at you, but like up, and then it's there, and you're like, well, that's a thing.
Absolutely.
I lost my dad 4 years ago, so I relate to losing a parent, which is really challenging. Like,
I'm so sorry.
It wasn't super quick, but it wasn't. It was weird, but you just, even if you know it's kind of coming, once it happens, it's totally not. Like, you can't. Like, even though you know.
Yeah. It's even
weird.
when you know it's coming, you don't believe that it's going to happen until it's happened.
Yeah, and I just didn't, like, I lost my grandparents, but like losing my dad, he was like, all my memories of him turned to ghosts. It was really weird. Like, when he died, just like, dares. I don't know if that sounds weird.
No, that makes total sense. So yes,
I relate to the moments of having grief just kind of come up and be there. Makes sense that when you're having a really good day, that you recognize the space left by then.
Yeah.
Jenny says, we all have someone like that in our life, and I love how relatable the book is. She's talking about your new one, Heart Whispers. And she said she just bought both books at this moment. She had them on her list, but she had to get them both. Wow.
Oh, thank you so much, Jenny.
Oh,
thank you.
You're going to really love them. They were just so good. Oh, I wasn't expecting to get sucker punched in the feels as much as I was, and it was delightful. I felt
I'm
bad
not sure whether to
fast
apologize or not.
Read through them. I was like, oh, she spent so much time on this, and I'm just eating them like candies.
I am always so thrilled when people tell me how fast they get through the book. It feels to me that I want my poems to be like potato chips.
Oh, they were.
I don't want them to be something so far removed from normal life. I don't want them to be filet mignon that you have to savor. And I mean, yeah, I want you to savor them, but I don't want it to be this production. I just want you to be able to read and enjoy.
I feel like you really succeeded in doing that with both books.
Thank you so much.
I really do. It felt like more like reading like Jack Perlitsky, not in the funny way, but like in the This is really great. I'm enjoying this experience.
I'm so happy.
They were wonderful. Okay, when did you realize you were a poet?
Oh gosh. Um, that is a difficult question to answer. Um, I definitely remember writing really, really bad, cringy poetry when I was 13, 14. Um, I had a little A6 sized notebook that was black and wire bound, and it was the perfect size because it fit into the pocket of my school uniform.
Nice.
So I had that book with me everywhere. And I am so glad that nobody ever took it into their mind to bully me by taking that book because there was serious ammo in there. Um, I wrote poems about everything, um, about the cute boy in my science class who won't even look at me, and um, what we ate for dinner last night got a poem. And honestly, anything I wrote about, I wrote in poetry form. Um, and they were awful. I am so glad that that book does not exist anymore. Um, that's my earliest memory of writing poetry, or at least writing poetry by myself. But so I don't know how it is in other places, but in South Africa, we have things called Adhds that are basically performance competitions.
Oh, okay.
And
Like a
one of the
talent show.
things, kind of like a talent show, somewhere between a talent show and a spelling bee.
Gotcha. We have, well, not in most places, but there's a private school my SO teaches at, and they have this thing where it's called like declamation or something, and they read
Mm-hmm.
things, and and there's like a first, second, third.
Yeah. So there are different categories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, you have music Eisteddfod, you have speech and drama Eisteddfod, um, and you have dance Eisteddfod. I did not do dance, and I was never good enough at music, much to my parents' shame. Um,
Are they musicians? Were they musicians or are?
uh, my mom was. My brother is actually a professional trumpeter. Um,
Whoa, no way.
so I'm enormously proud of him, and that is a whole other thing. I did speech and drama,
Mm-hmm.
and my main, I can't remember what the category was called, but my main sort of area was poetic recitation.
Mm-hmm.
So you have prepared readings, and um, so I performed a lot of poetry from the age of probably about 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got into the senior primary phase, there were actually, or there was a section where you could present your own. That they would give you a topic, and
Uh-huh.
you presented your own
Piece.
creation. Um, and I wrote the poem collaboratively with my mom.
Oh wow.
So I put all the feelings and the ideas down, and she helped me with things like rhyme and meter.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I was probably about 10 at the time. So I was not very advanced in that kind of thing at all. Um, and I seem to remember that I placed with that poem. So uh, I am going to blame my my poetry thing on my mom and on her father, who both of them were just absolute bookworms. When I got married, my grandparents were unable to travel. So my grandfather sent me a book of poems from his shelf. I believe that book is probably about 100 years old.
Oh.
And instead of having a pillow that our rings were carried in on, they were carried in on the book.
Oh, that's a really clever idea.
So that my grandparents could be there.
Oh.
Words and language I get from my mom and from her dad. And my mom always wanted to write a book. But when she was young, she was busy being young.
Right.
And then she had 3 kids.
And that takes a lot of time.
And just as my brother, the youngest of us, was leaving university and she was finally getting her life back together, she got a diagnosis of cancer.
Yikes.
And all of her energy went into that.
Yeah.
And right up until the day that she passed away, she still said, I'm going to write a book. She was still saying it with the morphine drip in, with no hair on her head, unable to eat anything, unable to drink anything. And she was still saying, I'm going to write a book.
She sounds like a force to be reckoned with.
My mom was an absolute phenom.
I wonder if you could do any Dadaist poetry with some of her journal writings she left behind. I'm assuming she had some journals.
If she did, I don't know where they are.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. I don't think that she was a journaler, though.
Interesting.
She was very much a planner. She always had a day book with her. That, 9 a.m. take so-and-so to doctor, 9:15 pick. That was my mom. She was organized to a fault. But she wasn't much of an introspective, touchy-feely kind of journaler. So I don't think that she has any journals, but I should probably ask my sister, because my sister did most of the estate work after. Yeah. So, but yes. So my mom always wanted to write a book and she never got there. So I did it. And
yes.
Yes.
It's got to count for something. She helped make you. There's involvement. She got you involved in
absolutely.
Poetry.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's cool. Or sad? I'm not sure which. I don't know.
I think it's both.
Yeah. I find it, the older I get, the more I'm realizing that we can hold 2 emotions at once and 2 ideas at once.
Multiple things can be true.
Yes. It's very interesting. Oh, Jenny says that she was on the speech team from 7th grade to 11th. No original oratory, but she won a lot. Oh, that's nifty.
And that actually makes a lot of sense with what I know about Ginny. So, yes.
She loves that she carried the rings on the books. Cool. That's so cool. I agree.
I had to involve them somehow.
And this is I love it. I'm a book nerd, I guess, and so that just really, that aesthetic is so cool.
I know. So when I was doing the wedding planning,
I love costumes. No, I love dresses and costumes and anything. Give me a theatrical production. Tell me about all the glitter, please.
So I'm a former theater kid.
Oh, yay.
Although Can I say former? No, because once a theatre kid, always a theatre kid.
Right? You will always
Um,
have black so that you can be on crew if need be.
Literally, August last year, I was running around backstage at the local dance school's year-end concert.
Oh, I love doing those. That's fun.
So, anyway, yes. When I started doing the wedding planning, I had a meeting with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Did it all very, like, proper.
Mm-hmm.
Sat her down and I said, right, this is what we're looking at. And then I got to the section in my notes that said theme. And my mom said, you don't need a theme for a wedding. The theme is love. The theme is your relationship. I said to her, yes, but I'm not talking about making it a production.
Has she seen any wedding shows? There are themes. Every single one of them. Snow White floor. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. Her point was that putting a theme to the wedding is making a production of it and taking away from the genuineness of it. She says, when I got married, we didn't have themes. The theme was getting married. And I said to her, no, but I want something. I don't want to make a production of it. That's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I want a cohesiveness to it.
Yeah.
I don't want it to feel like Auntie Susie's potluck. I want it to feel like something special. Because it is something special. And she said, okay, so what are you thinking? And I said, books. And she said, okay.
Did you have
because
a
that is
bouquet? I'm just a nerd. And I know you make those ornaments, and I'm like, oh, maybe she made her own origami flowers out of her favorite books.
And the reason that she agreed was because books are such a big thing in my life, but also in my husband's life, because we met at a writers group.
What? Oh, that's too cute.
So instead of table numbers, we had a very, very small wedding. There were only 6 tables.
Oh, that seems manageable.
It was very manageable. I think we had 30 people in total, half of which was Mr. Sage's family. Instead of table numbers, each of us picked our 3 favorite authors, and we had our tables named after our favorite authors. So, we made
what were the
2
authors?
lists.
Okay, what were the authors?
So, Anderson, Pratchett, Dickens, Austen, and I've gone blank.
Sorry, come to you. Adams? No.
No. Conrad?
I don't know Conrad. Maybe I do.
I can't remember the last one. One of Mr. Sage's, I'm sure. Because my 3 were in there, Pratchett, Dickens, and Austen. Anderson. Conrad.
Asimov?
No, I don't think so. Oh, well, I can't remember, but we had authors instead of table numbers, and it was very sweet. One of Mr. Sage's uncles came to us. He sort of sidled up to us and said, I think you have a typo. Sorry? Well, Anderson is with an E. You've got it with an N, with an O. We said, no, darling, not Hans Christian, Kevin J. Ah, okay. But it was so sweet. He was just genuinely worried that we, at our literary themed wedding, had made a typo and people would think that we were not as smart as we actually are.
I love that.
Anyway,
So
totally
sweet.
off topic.
No, well, I did ask you about your wedding. Somehow. The rings with the books, and Jenny was commenting on it. Yes, and you're not talking too much, Jenny. We appreciate your comments.
Yes.
Especially if they come with book purchases. That's terrible, but true. In Silk Flower Goodbye, there are 4 poems with the main title, and I was curious, since all of them, why were there 4 installments of Silk Flower Goodbye?
So Silk Flower Goodbye, parts 1 through 4, are really me thanking the 4 people that I lost for their influence on me, for the relationship that we had, for the memories that they've given me, and for the fact that I would not be the version of Sage that you see sitting here today were it not for my relationship with each of them. So there are other poems in Silk Flower Goodbye that are written to each of them or about each of them. But Silk Flower Goodbye and its 4 parts were really acknowledging that they made me who I am.
Oh, that's lovely. It's a much better answer than I ever could have. Oh, I love that. Oh, that was delightful. What was your favorite poet when you were like first getting into poetry? Did you have one that you just really like hugged?
So this is going to not fit at all.
That's okay.
I had a book, an illustrated book of children's poetry growing up. And there was a lot of Ogden Nash.
Okay.
And Spike Milligan.
Interesting. What's the book? What was the book?
Oh, I wish I could remember. But it was in a pile of books that when I started high school, my dad decided that I did not need those books anymore.
Right.
And his sister was starting up her preschool.
Oh.
And he very sweetly and with the best of intentions donated a box of my books to the preschool. So most of the poetry that I enjoyed growing up was comic poetry.
Yes.
I do not have that talent. It's a specific, exactly. It's a specific skill to be funny. And I am much better at being funny when I don't intend to be than I am when I do.
Me too. I've been trying to figure out, okay, what was funny about that? Because I would really like to harness it.
90% of my being funny comes from the fact that I don't have a filter. And what pops in here pops out here.
I feel that. My parents used to say I would open my mouth and insert my foot.
Yes. I had a teacher advise me to start carrying some mustard and tomato sauce, we call it, ketchup you'd call it, with me for the amount of times that I put my foot in my mouth. So
oh, that's too funny. So you mentioned like having a filter, like, So do you find yourself struggling with different sorts of, I don't know the right terminology. I want to say like non-neurotypical, but I do not like that or think it's a quite accurate. I don't know. But so do you have any coping?
Neurodivergent.
There we go. That's a little that yeah, that's much better. It sounds like really cool when you say neurodivergent.
So I don't have a diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
but I do believe that I fit a lot of criteria for something like ADHD.
Yep.
I definitely, especially when I was younger, I've gotten a lot better now, but when I was younger, I did not understand social cues at all.
Yes.
It's not the best. In fact, it's probably one of the worst representations in media is Big Bang Theory, Dr. Sheldon Cooper. But that whole thing with the, do I need to make you a sarcasm sign? Absolutely. When I was growing up, I needed somebody to hold up a sign and say, we are not being serious right now.
I feel that sometimes even now.
Because I just did not pick up on the social cues. And I think my family had kind of figured that out.
Mm-hmm.
But the other kids at school didn't really. So they're joking and playing around. And then, because we've discussed I'm a theatre kid,
Mm-hmm.
I like to parrot and mimic things because that's how you learn to be a good actor,
Right.
writer, performer, by looking at what's happening over there and trying it out for yourself and internalizing it. So they'd be joking, and I would try to joke, but I wouldn't be using the right building blocks.
Yep.
So I was a very awkward kid. I'm a very awkward adult. But I think I have gotten a lot better about picking up on social cues, understanding when people are joking, when they're not, when it's appropriate to insert yourself in a conversation and when it's not.
Did you have any big keys that were sort of like, that's how I do that you found just have really allowed you to better flow with society? If that not meaning to sound weird.
Honestly, I think the biggest factor in me getting to where I am now in terms of being able to cope with these things is, or was, being involved in theatre. And I sort of learned to look at the world as a series of roles, of costumes that you put on and take off, and when it's appropriate to wear that costume. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else.
That makes sense.
But it makes sense to me.
Was there any, are there any specific cues you really struggled with for a while? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's the cue. Because I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people struggle with social cues. And I think there's a need for, one, to let people know they're not alone, and two, to let them know that there are ways to cope. And we all have different ways we need to cope with, because life is messy and nobody's fully normal. And so I guess
I don't know that I could pinpoint anything.
That's fair.
I can, looking back over my life, I can see very definite periods where, when I was very young, I just was myself and I did what I did. And I butted into conversations with very little understanding. It sounds big-headed to say it, but I was a very precocious child. I had a vocabulary 3 times that of my classmates. So I couldn't hold a conversation with them.
Right, because they didn't get it. Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way, but they just didn't.
They kind of looked at me like, what language are you speaking? So then I would spend more of my time with the adults who are also kind of looking at me going, you're 8. You should be running around with your friends or doing something other than talking with the grown-ups. And then probably when I was about 9 or 10, I really became very introverted. I fully believe that I was an extrovert as a child, but I became introverted out of necessity.
Yeah.
Because the kids aren't talking to me. The adults don't really want me there. So I'm going to take my books and I'm going to go and sit in a corner and I'm going to read. And that was my life. And for probably most of my school career, I didn't talk that much. Unless I was on stage or taking part in an Adhd or something like that, where I was basically being forced to talk. Because I spent so much time in my head thinking, is this the right word to use in this situation? No, it's probably not. So I'd better rewrite that sentence before I say it.
It's a lot of self-discipline to not like, because it's hard for me. Anyways, I admire your ability to be like, you know what, I'll wait till I have it right. I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to forge ahead like an elephant.
Yeah.
At least as a kid.
But
go ahead.
At the time, I also had severe undiagnosed depression. And it honestly just seemed like too much effort to talk to people. So I think something that happened is people might not have realized how much I was watching and listening, because I wasn't being an active participant in the conversations. But I was watching and maybe not reacting, but watching other people's reactions. And I think I can't vocalize what I know, but I now know what's expected of me.
Makes sense.
So, yes.
Do you have a favorite thing that you do for, like, to recharge your batteries, or something that you're like, oh, this is happening, I guess I need to go recharge my batteries?
So I do actually. Something that I've recently started doing again, and when I say recently, I mean since the global situation. I have karaoke parties with myself.
Oh, that's fun. Sounds fun.
I used to be a singer. I was never a soloist. But I did a lot of choral singing. I was in a lot of ensembles, and that was great. And that all came to an end when I was 15, and we moved to a new city. And I started in a new school where I auditioned for the choir and was told that I wasn't good enough.
That's heartbreaking.
They didn't phrase it that way. I will give them that. Basically, they said, we have a school of more than 1,000 children.
Mm-hmm.
We only have space in the choir for X number of pupils.
Mm.
And you can't even look at it like that, because then you've got to break it down into, we only have space for so many sopranos and so many altos and so many.
Right, baritones and tenor.
And I am a contralto, which is a difficult voice to place.
Mm-hmm.
And
especially if you're a girl.
And I stopped singing.
Or a person, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry, but I'm glad you've started again.
Oh, thank you. When my brother was in his third year of university,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I saw, well, I had always seen how much music made him happy.
Mm-hmm.
I was always incredibly jealous of him, because he knew at 10 years old that that was what he was going to do. And I didn't have that clarity. So I was incredibly jealous of him. I still am. And I wanted vocal coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just no way that I could get it, because all of our resources were going into my brother's studies, my mom's healthcare, all of that sort of thing. And I wasn't in a position to pay for it myself.
Right.
And I just let it go.
Yeah.
And then the global situation happened, and I got onto YouTube and I started streaming and hanging out with Sarko and BC Brown, and they were running their monthly karaoke parties. And I thought, you know what? Why the heck not?
Yes!
And I just haven't stopped.
Oh, that's amazing.
So when I'm feeling stressed, the thing that I do is I load up my karaoke player and I sing.
That's a really great stress relief. I read an article many years back about I think either Japanese or Chinese scientist who was studying these, like, I'm not sure, they're little organisms, jellyfish, and they don't die. They just sort of like go into a globby thing and then like kind of. Anyway, so he's studying this and he's come to the conclusion that singing is one of the most healthy things you can do for your brainwaves. It helps you live longer because it's stress relief, and he highly recommends it. He's like, well, I'm not a talented singer, but it's very good for your soul.
I think one of the biggest problems at least in Western society, I can't speak for the rest of the world, is this idea that anything that you love or that you enjoy, you have to be good at.
Right.
And that if you have to be good at it, you have to be able to profit from it.
Or that you need to be good instantly. Like they don't give, like, I mean, everybody kind of knows about the 10,000 hours, but I don't feel it's given enough credit that you can improve if you're just, and it may take more than 10,000 hours. Just put your nose to the grindstone, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
Exactly. So, I mean, I will probably never be on stage singing in a solo role. Although one of my ultimate dreams is to one day perform the role of Burr in Hamilton.
That'd be so cool.
It's right up there on my bucket list. I don't think I'm that good, but it doesn't matter if I'm good or not, because singing makes me happy.
Yay! I'm so glad that you're brave enough to go forth and do it anyway. I feel it takes courage.
So anyone who's watching or listening, do the things that make you happy, whether you're good at them or not.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing advice. And agreed.
And the dog agrees too.
Apparently, she's being very vocal right now. We had our pig come in their yard the other day, in the,
Oh,
at like 4 a.m, and they're just barking at the wind generally. And I'm like, is the pig back?
well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that happens to. I live in rural South Africa. We often have cows and sheep and pigs outside our fence, and the dogs go nuts. So,
We're in South Carolina, like on the edge of like we're staying in on a couple acres right now. So like for city folk, that's very country, but for country, we're
mhm.
like, well, I'm not quite to the place where my signals have dropped to nothing. So
Yeah, we're not homesteading. We're
no,
just
I'm not gonna have to go call chickens, though at some point I don't want to own chickens for eggs.
yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's delightful. Where can people find your books? I know that they're available on Amazon Unlimited to the end of the month, right?
Yes. So Silk Flower Goodbye is on Amazon. It is Kindle Unlimited until I believe the 19th of this month.
Okay.
Um, the Heart Whispers is available wide in
Mm-hmm.
digital only. Um, Silk Flower Goodbye does have a paperback version. Uh, the Heart Whispers. Um, I am still working on the formatting for
Mm-hmm.
because I want to include some illustrations.
Oh, that's so cool. Who's your illustrator?
Um,
Do you know yet? You are? Ah, that's even
me.
better. Your cover designs are gorgeous. I enjoyed them. Very pretty.
Thank you. Yes, and if anyone is wanting more information, it's all on my website, which is www.moonbunnycreative.com.
And I did put that in the doobly doo, so you can get it.
Thank you so much.
I highly recommend these books, 10 out of 10. They are really good and they're relatable, and it doesn't, sometimes poetry can feel intimidating, and I feel like these are not.
That was my big thing is I want my poetry to be relatable. I don't want poetry is often seen as this exclusionary thing that you have to be so smart to understand. And I think that's also down a lot to how it's taught in schools. That the not just the way that it's taught, but the actual poems that they choose to teach, they tend to choose the stodgier kind of classic poems, which obviously have value and merit. I would never
Mm-hmm.
argue that they don't. But the easiest way to turn an audience off is to teach them in that
This,
stodgy kind of blah way.
where there's nothing to sink your teeth into, no relatability. The words
None
are
whatsoever.
confusing.
So,
Yeah.
anyway,
But
sorry,
oh, that's awesome.
tangent.
No, no. Oh my God, this is your interview. Please, I hope that you've talked more than I have. Christina says, yes, exactly. Do the stuff and things that make you happy. And I agree with that too. I
Yes.
think so. Yeah, your books are awesome. Please buy them. Is there any
Thank you.
last like advice that you have for people or writers that may be feeling, I don't know, intimidated by the blank page or by their
I
own
think
scatterbrain?
I definitely I have a lot to say, but I won't.
No, you can take a while. Just,
I'll
just
try
say the
and
thing.
distill it.
Okay.
Um, write for yourself. Write the story that you want to tell. Write the story that you want to read. Don't worry about what Stephen King would do or what Joanne Harris would do. You're not them. You're you. And you are the only you. So there is a ton of writing advice out there. Take it in, listen to what people have to say, try it out for yourself. If it doesn't work for you, You don't have to follow it. If it does, that's great. But the important thing is to remember that no one can tell you how to write. They can only tell you how they write.
That's really good.
There we go.
Awesome.
Also, write personal.
Yes.
Because when you write something personal, you make it universal. When you try to write universal, you make it bland.
Yeah, it's very paper dollish if it's just universal.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like especially your experience with Silk Flower Goodbyes really highlights that. Like, it was very personal and super soul bearing, but it is really relatable, and grief and loss. And I think there's not enough on some level of real discussion of loss. And like, people think there's these steps to go through, and it's really just, at least in my experience, learning how to live with the ghosts or live with the loss or something. And I don't know. This is nice to know you're not alone in the feelings of.
Absolutely. That's really, I mean, that's what everything is about, is just knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, I don't know, 7 billion people on this planet. Logically, you cannot be alone.
And miraculously, so many of us do feel alone.
Exactly. So,
well, I hope people feel less alone after listening to this, and especially after reading your wonderful works. Please, please, please go check out Sage Gordon Davis. She is amazing. She is a brilliant person doing brilliant things, and I am so, so thrilled you came to talk with me and shared your lovely work. And thanks. You're just amazing. And so thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had an absolute blast.
Oh, me too. You're just delightful. Thank you. Thank you so
much.
Thank you for being brilliant.
Oh. I don't even know how to respond to that.
Well, it's a good note to end on, because you are, and we're just going to leave it there. Love you all, guys. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye.